Morning everyone, and welcome once again to Basic of C Programming. We are going to use the Tic Tac Toe game. We are going to develop the Tic Tac Toe game and in the process learn about the basics of C programming. Now in order to develop Tic Tac Toe using the C language, we need to first understand the requirements. From the Wikipedia, we have a very nice little definition of the Tic Tac Toe game. It says that Tic Tac Toe is a paper and pencil game for two players, X and O, who take turns marking the spaces in a 3x3 grid. The player who succeeds in placing three respective marks in a horizontal, vertical, or diagonal row wins the game. Now, this is how a tic-tac-toe board or a grid looks like. One player chooses the X mark while the other player chooses the O mark, and they take turns one by one to mark the spaces in this grid. And if anyone is able to complete a line, either a horizontal line or a vertical line or a diagonal line, then that player wins the game. It is important to know certain keywords that come in this definition, and one of those keywords is two players. Now this is a two-player game. It's not a three-player game or a four-player game. It's just two players. The second thing that is to be noticed is the spaces. Now there are a total of 9 spaces in this particular grid of 3x3. The grid, that is the board on which the players will play, is also an important thing to be noted. And finally, in the last sentence, we have a logic which is used to decide whether a player has won or not. This logic is in English, and we have to convert it into mathematical terms so that the computer is able to understand the same. Okay, now what we have is, if you are Mr. Computer, what are the questions that you will be asking? So you have two players, so you would like to know what are the names of those two players. There are 9 spaces. How would you identify those 9 spaces? You can use the XY coordinates to identify those 9 spaces. And then what will be the winning logic? Of course, we have looked at the logic in terms of English, but we have to convert that logic into mathematical terms. This is the grid that we are talking about, spaces, etc. Now, the next thing to do is to list down the steps that will happen when we execute this game. Now, in order to execute the game, the first thing that happens is that we have to start at a point. So how will this game start? You can think about it. What I have written over here is that the game will start by asking the names of the players. That is the thing that is required at the beginning. You ask the names of the players, and then you say, okay, Mr. ABC, it's your turn. Mr. XYZ, it's your turn. Mr. ABC, it's your turn, and so on. And after asking the names, the display or the empty board is displayed, because right now there are no moves. It's an empty board. And then the computer is going to ask the player 1 or ABC or whatever his name is for the move. Once the player 1 inputs the move is displayed on the board, and then it is calculated if this move has resulted in a win for player 1. Exactly the same thing will happen for player 2. Ask player 2 for the move, input the move, display the board and the move, and find out if player 2 has won. The steps from step 2 to 9, these are repeated until someone wins the game, or until all the moves are exhausted, or the 3x3 matrix or the 3x3 grid is full. as we were talking about the spaces on the board, now we need to find out an easy way of identifying the spaces on the board. What I suggest is that we'll identify the spaces on the board in this way. The top left corner is 0, then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is an easy way of identifying the spaces instead of saying 1, 1, 2, 3 and all that, which is a bit confusing. You'll always get this board on which 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is written, and you just need to choose the appropriate number, and that number will be replaced by the cross or O depending on which player you are. Okay, now let's move on to the output. So the first thing that we need to do is probably display the board, and now we need to jump into programming right away. In C we have something called printf. This printf, or print in a formatted way, is a statement that is used for printing or for displaying text or anything else on to the screen, and the text that has to be displayed on the screen is within, as you see, there are two braces, and then after the braces the text is within these double quotes. After every line of C there is a semicolon over here, which I have not shown. Like a book, a C program also has a cover. This is the cover of the C program: main, brace, brace. The actual program or the actual statements will come over here. You cannot have just printf. What you need to have is the cover, and within the cover the actual statements are going to come. Why does that happen? We are going to discuss that shortly. Very simple exercise. This is the board that we need to display using various characters. I mean, these lines don't need to be continuous, they can be in form of dashes as well. So use the printf statement and try to display this board on your screen. There's a hint for you. You can use the \n as a new line character. Try this out, and you will become more familiar with how to write a program and use the printf statement.